The past never dies. It is time for the biggest voice entry reveal we have seen in years. Now we know that they had futuristic technology, plot twists, big reveals, emotional moments, and hints of a secret heritage. We have got a ton of stuff to get through this week, so no more wasting time. Let's get to it. We open chapter 1066 with an establishing shot of Egghead Island as the Straw Hats react to Vegapunk Shaka's revelation from last time. Getting another look at Vegapunk's new home, this ridiculously futuristic island underlines how bold Shaka's claim was. Between the laboratory and factory levels, we've seen floating buildings, transport tubes, and gigantic holographic monsters. Could something like this have really existed in the history of the world? Surely it would have left some trace behind. The Straw Hats find it hard to believe. Vegapunk admits that this whole theory is ultimately conjecture on his part, and he has no solid evidence to prove it to them. Still, he has some facts to back up the idea. The scientist notes that he knew a passionate archaeologist who risked everything to shed light on a certain mysterious kingdom. And at one specific site, this archaeologist managed to unearth machinery dating back to this ancient kingdom. Robin can put that together easily enough. She asks Vegapunk directly if he's saying that this ancient high-tech kingdom existed during the Void Century. That is the only way something so big could have been hidden from the world. Shaka snarks that she could tell him about this. She is a demon child and survivor of Ohara after all. Nami asks her crewmate if she knows something about this. Before she can reply, Vegapunk starts to actually fill in the blanks. He can accept that it was a painful memory, but Robin has to have the basics down. Her home was wiped out by a Buster Call. Vegapunk has worked out that Ohara was targeted because they had deduced the existence of that ancient kingdom. Shaka continues to go in deep on this hypothesis. He has made some strong deductions, working out that the entire Void Century was a period of conflict between this forgotten advanced kingdom and the 20 lesser nations that would go on to form the world government. He's effectively deduced the existence of the Poneglyph civilization. He believes that the point of suppressing all knowledge about the Void Century is intended to remove all knowledge of this ancient kingdom's ideas. And when the civilization has this kind of world-shaking technology that requires leaving no trace that they ever existed. It's an interesting angle. Up until now, we'd figured the Great Kingdom was hidden due to some kind of event that made the world government look bad. This opens up another possibility. They may have been erased to keep their technology out of the hands of everyday people. It becomes a whole lot easier to rule the world if you are the only one left with powerful weapons, doesn't it? The Straw Hats can barely believe the idea. Nami is shocked at even the concept of this ancient civilization being covered up. Usopp gapes, asking aloud if Vegapunk is telling the truth. It does sound like the sort of tall tale that he would tell. However, Frankie does not doubt Shaka for a minute. This whole idea has him hyped up. It's epic and cool in the way he lives for. He might even ask Robin for some archaeology tips once they're done, hoping he can dig up a mecha out of the desert. But it is Sanji who brings the group back to Earth with a logical point. The world government wants to erase any trace of this information from history. Thus, by telling the Straw Hats about it, Vegapunk has effectively marked them all for death. Shaka confirms as much to the horror of Usopp. The sniper starts beating his head against the floor, desperately trying to forget the dangerous information he has just learned. Shaka tries to calm the situation a little, admitting that this is all simply conjecture. None of them have hard proof of this ancient kingdom's existence. He turns to Robin though, with a point to make. Even though they have no firm evidence of this ancient kingdom or its technology, doesn't the government wiping out Ohara strongly imply that he's got this right? Robin doesn't answer Shaka directly. Instead, she turns the question around on him. Shouldn't Vegapunk know the truth about the Void Century? After all, he's supposed to be a high-ranking government official. It is his organization that is suppressing this knowledge. The archaeologists of Ohara may have had theories about the Void Century, but shouldn't Vegapunk know the full truth? But Shaka shuts that idea down. He's not that special. He might have government ties, but if he asked about this directly, he would be erased just like anyone else. Usopp tries to end the conversation there. If this information is so dangerous, then Vegapunk should just stop talking about it already. This has the crew's cowards scared, but it is more than understandable. A lot of people have already died over this knowledge. Shaka doesn't respond to him, however. Robin doesn't even hear Usopp. Her focus is on Vegapunk. What he just said created a contradiction. If Vegapunk doesn't know the truth of the Void Century, how does he know Ohara was researching that ancient kingdom? Shaka's response is simple. The will of Ohara lives on. The masked Vegapunk goes over his thoughts on the fall of the library. The destruction of Ohara was a shocking event for everyone who knew about the island. An island known for its love of knowledge was wiped out just like that. All those ancient scholars were labeled devils, revolutionaries, and dissidents. Even hearing Shaka recount what happened is enough to infuriate Robin. She looks like she's fighting the urge to punch their host. And you know what, thanks to her devil fruit, that is doable even with her feet bound. Shaka doesn't seem to notice her anger. The Vegapunk continues, finally reaching his own part in these events. A few months after the tragedy of Ohara, he sailed to the island. He was an acquaintance of Professor Clover, the world's greatest archaeologist. Vegapunk figured he should at least leave the old man some flowers, some basic sign of respect. Robin is stunned by the idea that Vegapunk knew Professor Clover. As far as she knew, the old man never left the Great Library. Shaka starts to think nostalgically about his friend. Apparently, before settling down, Professor Clover was an archaeology pirate. Now, Vegapunk never uses the term exactly, but his description of Clover's adventures fit it perfectly. We see the professor standing proudly on the bow of his own ship, blade in hand, as Shaka tells Robin how many times the Marines arrested him. We don't see his Jolly Roger in this shot, but is there really any doubt? Clover traveled the world pursuing his dream of knowledge. In the world of One Piece, nothing could be more pirate-like. Other talented minds were drawn to Captain Clover. The old scholar had a crew, or nakama if you will. When they settled down, it made Ohara a holy land of archaeology. But that just made its loss all the more tragic. Vegapunk could not believe what he found once his ship made landfall. Even the Tree of Knowledge, Ohara's ancient symbol, had been burned to cinders. Nothing was left of those proud scholars and all their hard work, or at least that's what he thought at first. But then he made a startling discovery. The lake in the center of the island held an unbelievable number of books. It was a staggering pile rising almost halfway to the top of the lake. Even though he wasn't a pirate, Vegapunk had stumbled upon sunken treasure. Shaka surmises it must have been the work of the scholars. They were the only ones left on the island while the library was burning. They must have dedicated their final moments to trying to save the books, throwing them down into the one spot the fire couldn't reach, even above their own lives. If any Marine checked the island after the Buster Call was over, they had to have missed the books. Even in death, the Library of Ohara had won against the world government. Their knowledge would not die with them. And you know what? This really hits home for me because the Library of Ohara, the burning of it, the backstory of Robin was one of the most gut-wrenching moments in One Piece history by far for me. So to know that they won out in the end, it means the world. Robin is struggling not to cry as she thinks back to that day. She thinks back to her mother, Nico Olivia, pressing her to get away from Ohara. Young Robin tried desperately to argue with Olivia, not wanting to leave her mother behind. The other Nico had tears in her eyes as she refused her daughter's last request. History is a great treasure. It is important for the future of the world, for Robin's future. They had to protect it, however they could. Even with the Marines continuing to shell the island, the scholars kept working, right to the very end. In the present, Robin is finally crying. Her family managed to save a portion of Ohara. That legacy really does live on beyond her. The Straw Hats are outraged at this. Nami, Frankie, and Sanji all look ready to pulverize Shaka for making Robin cry. Only their boots are holding them back. It takes Robin a second to speak up, confirming that Vegapunk was right and quieting her friends. The scholars had reached pretty much the same conclusion about the ancient kingdom prior to the incident. Shaka seems to take this news calmly, though it is hard to tell given his helmet. Is this a calm acceptance of his fate, or are his feelings more complex? Robin asks what happened to the books in the lake. Shaka admits that he wanted to take them back to his lab on Punk Hazard, but abandoned that idea. If the government knew he had taken something from dangerous Ohara, he would be the next in line for a Buster Call. Instead, the books were retrieved by another band of people that Vegapunk saw that day. This was a couple of months after the tragedy of Ohara, 22 years ago now. Vegapunk was quite shocked when he saw who else had arrived on the burned down island. The team was pulling them up in mass using a fishing net and already had a prodigious pile of tomes behind them. Vegapunk wasn't sure what to do about the giants. Why were they taking the books? Should he intervene? He had no idea what they planned to do with them after all. As far as Vegapunk knew, they were world government contractors here to finish destroying Ohara's legacy. But before he could make up his mind, a familiar voice called out to him from high above, commenting on his distinctive head. Vegapunk turned, shocked to recognize the stranger. Monkey D. Dragon had also arrived on Ohara. We get a good look at the two men here. Age has been kind to Dragon. He looks pretty much unchanged by the intervening years. Vegapunk's original body, however, is unique. Oda has taken big brain energy to a new level with a ludicrously long head. It is impressive that the doctor can even lift his own brain around with a body of that size. Dragon comments that he is just as surprised to see Vegapunk here. He explains that he knew Professor Clover too. If you look closely, you'll see he also brought flowers for Ohara's grave. The two men, a scientist and a revolutionary, are on the same page when it comes to their friend. He was a bit of a rogue, roaming the seas, getting up to who knows what. Still, the idea of him trying to end the world is absurd. They have no doubt that that part is pure propaganda. Dragon fills Vegapunk in on the giants. They're not some random band of scavengers he needs to worry about. They're from Elbaf, and they know how valuable these books are. They have come here under orders from a captain, one wrapped from head to toe in bandages. This mystery man said that Ohara sacrificed himself for these treasures, and the giants can't let them be erased from history. Dragon glares at Vegapunk, noting that now that he's seen a government lapdog lurking about, he's glad the giants are here to rescue the books. Vegapunk looks hurt by that, protesting that he would never destroy such treasures. Dragon isn't in the mood to listen, however. He claims he gave Vegapunk a chance to join his group of freedom fighters a while back, and the doctor passed it up. That was one thing, but hearing that the doctor is now actively working with the world government made him sick. This is enough to get Vegapunk to punch back a bit. Dragon's group may have had good intentions, but they lack the resources Vegapunk would need to build anything. What good is it to have a genius inventor on your side if he doesn't have the ability to build stuff? Dragon accepts that with a sigh, noting that Vegapunk is as blunt as ever. Starting to calm down now, the doctor tries to be more friendly with the rebel. He knows that the world government is a massive organization. Not everyone is a kill-crazy moron who would burn down a library while blindly following orders. There are plenty of people they can reason with. Vegapunk chides Dragon, telling him not to lose sight of the end goal. What that might be, neither mentions. Even if he's not a freedom fighter, the Doctor and Dragon seem to be on the same page about something. The old monkey agrees, but he's clearly irate. He has just seen the burned remains of a library full of innocent scholars. These harmless, friendly people were slaughtered for questioning the world government. He can't simply sit back and let that slide. As such, Dragon makes a resolution. Sitting by the grave of Ohara with Vegapunk, the son of Garp declares that he's going to form a group to fight the world government head on. The Doctor is surprised to hear that. He thought his old frenemy hated war. Dragon doesn't deny that, but claims that he will change the world all the same. The will of Ohara won't be lost with the destruction of the library. Sitting down like this, Dragon's jaw and nose make him look surprisingly similar to Rock's DJ Beck. Appropriate for the moment, he declares full-on war against the world government. He is following in the footsteps of two men who came before him. And within a year of that visit to Ohara, Dragon put his words into action. He, Emporio Ivankov, and Bartholomew Kuma had founded the Revolutionary Army to take on the world government. The Straw Hats can't take the suspense anymore at this point. The whole group starts yelling over Shaka, even shouting out about a different point. Nami is shocked at how intense Luffy's father sounds. She has never actually gotten to meet Dragon up close. He is so unlike his freewheeling son. Usopp, meanwhile, has been drawn in by the mention of Elbaf. He actually has a lead on this location. News of the Island of Giants is so exciting to the sniper, he's forgotten the fact that this information could get him killed. Robin is surprised that Professor Clover's fate is what motivated Dragon. She had never realized his connection between the Revolutionary Army and the Scholars of Ohara, which makes her recruitment all the more touching. Frankie, hearing Kuma's name, wants to know why Vegapunk modified him so much. Sanji remembers Eva's name, and he certainly did not expect Eva to be one of the founders of the Revolutionary Army. Even thinking about that time is enough to make Sanji look depressed. Shaka doesn't try to answer the Straw Hats' questions just yet, simply continuing his story of the past. He couldn't risk the books falling into the world government's hands. But his curiosity got the better of him. He took a discreet trip to Elbaf and asked the Giants to let him study everything they recovered. And he memorized all of it. That's one of the perks of having a ridiculously massive brain, it seems. It allowed Shaka to follow on from Ohara's research. Before he can go any further, however, Robin interrupts again. She just realized something. Shaka had told them the books were saved by a giant captain, someone covered in bandages. She asked Vegapunk the obvious question. Was his name Saul? Shaka is pointedly silent before noting that the giant is in hiding. He can't confirm anything. The implication of that is more than enough for Robin, however. The tears are streaming down her face, but she is beyond happy at this news. Despite everything that happened, Jaguar D. Saul made it out okay. And at that, I really see why the initial D is a big thorn in the world government's side. How is this guy still here? It takes the archaeologist a few seconds to recover from that revelation. When she does, however, Robin thanks Vegapunk for continuing Ohara's work. He is ensured it does not all end with them. The mad scientist is gracious about it. As far as he's concerned, it's only natural for a scholar to help out in any field they can. Now that his story is done, the Master of Egghead Island activates a new feature on their shoes. All 5 Straw Hats are pulled towards a now opening door. Shaka admits he can't trust them with their freedom just yet, but he wants them to continue with him. He has something he wants to show the crew. We are finally going to get a look at what Vegapunk has been working on. What could it be? Remember, Shaka asked Lilith to bring him the Straw Hats. Given Vegapunk Stella's path with Dragon, has he been preparing technology to help them? Dragon has largely stayed distant from his son, but Vegapunk must have seen the Marineford broadcast. Of course he would build something cool to help out his old friend's kid. Some kind of power armor maybe. Or a Rumble Ball-like enhancement for Gear 5th. But that will have to wait for the next chapter, unfortunately. For now, we move on over to Luffy's group. They are still freaking out over the giant mech they had discovered last time. And unfortunately, they've also discovered a painful truth. There is no way to get inside. Instead of a pilotable mech, it is simply a very big self-propelled robot. That doesn't hold Luffy and Chopper back one bit, however. A giant robot friend is still pretty cool. They start trying to get it to move, calling out various commands and phrases to hopefully stir the robot to life. However, none of them work. Jinbei and Bonnie look on, the latter scoffing at the 2 Straw Hats. As far as Bonnie's concerned, there is no way this pile of junk could actually move. So then, of course, it starts to move. In Bonnie's defense, however, she was basically right. The whole scrapyard area is trembling, like an earthquake has suddenly struck the island. Luffy yells at the crew to get away, convinced the robot is about to explode. By Luffy standards, that is a surprisingly practical idea. Ultimately, however, no explosion or earthquake happens. Instead, half of an old man emerges from thin air, calling out for help. The pirates are shocked at this strange occurrence. Even with everything else they've gone through since arriving on Egghead, this is pretty bizarre. Still, this is not the first time Luffy has had to save half a person. He even knows that the stranger is like Kinemon as he pulls the old weirdo free of whatever imprisoned him. Bonnie then recognizes the stranger's face now that it is free of the spatial distortion. She grimaces in anger, but the old man does not notice. He's just happy for the assistance. He thanks Luffy, immediately recognizing him as Dragon's kid and praising him for making his way here. He then notices Bonnie too, remarking on how big she has gotten. Super casual for the guy who made her dad a cyborg. He is so excited by this that he has started floating in the air, much to Luffy's amazement. Bonnie is not in the mood for good cheer, however, crying out Vegapunk's name. She looks like she's about to stab the old man with her lightsaber. Vegapunk doesn't seem to catch on, instead explaining his jet shoes to Luffy and Chopper. All the Egghead issue Dom shoes have a jet propulsion function. It just takes one button and a quick pull of a lever. And with that, Luffy, Chopper, and Vegapunk are sent flying into the air once again. That keeps happening in this arc for some reason. Vegapunk cries out that they have flown much too far and are in need of rescue. But look at that face. All 3 of them are having the time of their lives jetting through the sky like this. And with that, we close out chapter 1066. What do you think of Vegapunk's original form? Do you have any thoughts on what past he might share with Dragon? And what could Shaka possibly have to show the rest of the Straw Hat crew? Be sure to share us your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, I am Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.